This Tuesday, the Chilean Senate delayed a vote on a long-awaited bill to legalize same-sex marriage and shelved another to decriminalize abortion. Some 200 personalities and politicians from 19 countries are participating in the 7th meeting of the Puebla Group, which began on Monday in Mexico. Ethiopians living abroad have mobilized to demand an end to the foreign interference in the country as the war against the Tigray People's Liberation Front continues. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news today. This Tuesday, the Chilean Senate delayed a vote on a long-awaited bill to legalize same-sex marriage and shelved another to decriminalize abortion. After passing through the Chamber of Deputies earlier this month, a vote was scheduled for Tuesday in the upper house for the final green light depending on approval from its Constitutional Commission. In a frustrating day for activists, the bill on gay marriage, which will also allow same-sex couples to adopt children, was sent back to legislators to iron out disagreements on the day many had hoped it will finally be passed.
We are frankly disappointed in what happened today in the Constitutional Committee in the Senate, since we hoped that the bill that was dispatched from the lower house could pass directly to the chamber without observations. However, it was decided to pass it to a mixed commission, which will delay it at least 2 or 3 weeks. We have waited so many years now. We have been on the first demonstration since the year 2000, in 2012 also, to ask for equal marriage. So I believe that there is a discouragement, but at the same time we have hope. We have hope because we have the society support, because it is a desire of the LGBTQI+ community.
I believe that from today, if this law is approved, everything will change for same-sex couples, people who make up families with other people of the same sex. Gays, lesbians will have the same status as heterosexual people. That culturally is going to be very, very important for the country.
Now we address other topics. In Honduras, the vote count following Sunday's general elections is progressing. With just over 52% of the ballot counted, presidential candidate Xiomara Castro of the Liberty and Refundation Party continues to be set to become the country's first woman president, having secured more than 53% of the vote. Meanwhile, the right-wing candidate of the ruling National Party, Nasrias Fura, is in second place with almost 34% of the vote, according to the latest update by the National Electoral Council. Losing presidential candidate Nasrias Fura met with Xiomara Castro this Tuesday and congratulated her on her victory. He also offered a message recognizing his defeat at the polls on Sunday. The move helps allay fears that the ruling party may seek to challenge the results with claims of electoral fraud and further strengthen Xiomara Castro's position as president-elect ahead of the announcement of the full official results.
I have no enemies, because all other candidates are and will always be my friends. I want to tell you that today I met with Xiomara and her entire family. I went to her home to congratulate her personally. I would now like to say publicly that I congratulate you on your victory and as a president-elect. I hope that God to enlighten you and guide you in your administration to do your best for the benefit of all of us Hondurans, to achieve that development and to yearning for democracy. I want to express that I ask Xiomara to respect the result of all our candidates for deputies and mayors of the country. I thank the thousands of Hondurans who showed me their support, which according to the sample projections add up to about 1 million votes, to all party leaders, especially to this great structure, to the leadership at the national level deputies and mayors who have accompanied me. My friends and my family, the country needs reconciliation, unity to achieve harmony and the work that is the path that will lead us to the development that we all yearn for.
Venezuela's highest court ruled on Monday that fresh elections be held in the state of Barinas as the opposition candidate that won the governorship on November 21st by a minimal margin was disqualified due to investigations into accusations of corruption. Freddy Superlano received 37.21% of the ballots cast compared to his rival Argenis Chavez, who secured 37.6%, according to projections of the National Electoral Council. But on Monday, Venezuela's highest court ruled in favor of the country's public finances watchdog, which had sought a declaration of Superlano's ineligibility as an election candidate. The governor of the state of Barinas, Argenis Chavez, who stood for re-election as the candidate for the ruling United Socialist Party of Venezuela in the recent regional elections, announced his resignation from the post and his decision not to seek re-election when the polls are repeated on January 9th.
I have decided to leave the post from today. After this press conference, I will present my resignation as governor of the state to the competent authority, that is the Regional Legislative Council. In fact, I am accompanied by its president, Nelson Peña, and the vice president, to whom I will present my irrevocable resignation from this post.
Argenis Chavez also acknowledged the ruling issued by the Supreme Court of Raw Justice Electoral Chamber in relation to the recently held electoral process in the state of Barinas.
I will respect the results of the National Electoral Council, which should reflect the will of the majority of the voters who went to the polls on Sunday, November 21st, to express themselves through the vote. And that is precisely what I am doing, to recognize, on the one hand, the projections that have been presented through the Supreme Court of Justice, in this case the National Electoral Council, and on the other hand, to abide by the sentence of the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. Some 200 personalities and politicians from 19 countries arrived in Mexico to participate in the 7th meeting of the Puebla Group, which began on Monday. The meeting is the first of the group to be held face-to-face since 2020, when its members began to meet virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Members of the group have issued new proposals for what they call a model of solidarity and development in the American continent. The electoral process in Chile and Honduras, the future elections in Brazil, as well as the situation in Venezuela and Cuba are among the current affairs addressed at the meeting. And addressing the Puebla Group meeting, former President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, called for an analysis on the steps to be taken to protect the most vulnerable sectors of society in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This third meeting of the Puebla Group is taking place at a time when there is a concern in the world. What will humanity's future be like after the pandemic? Likewise, what is the future of humanity now during the pandemic? What can we do for the poorest, most humble people? What can we do for workers who have lost their jobs? Or what can we do for the millions and millions of beings who, all over the world, travel along roads, railways, and oceans, looking for an opportunity to work, to eat, to live, and do not find shelter, do not find solidarity? Often, many times, they are marginalized.
Meanwhile, Argentine President Alberto Fernandez called on the Puebla Group to promote development in Latin America and the Caribbean in order to reduce inequalities in the region.
Path of development. We live in this continent, our Latin America, which is the most unequal in the world, the continent with the greatest gap between the rich and the poor. If once and for all we do not take the bull by the horns, truth be told, once again we will be struck by that dreadful reality that the pandemic has exposed, the reality of inequality in which a few enjoy life and millions suffer.
Likewise, Bolivian President Luis Arce stressed that it's time to discuss concrete action in order to face the resurgence of COVID-19.
It is important that all the leaders of our peoples of Latin America, gathered in the Puebla Group, take another look at the health issue, at what is happening with the pandemic, the resurgence of the pandemic in several countries where quite drastic measures are being taken. We should also call our attention so that we take joint measures to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves. To all member countries in the region, we think that it is the right time to bring these issues back to the discussion table, so that all countries can coordinate joint actions, because it is clear from what we are seeing that the efforts we have seen in many Latin American countries to increase vaccination, to solve the health issue, are unfortunately being exposed to risks that come from the poor distribution of vaccines worldwide.
Bien. In Colombia, the Comprehensive System of Truth, Justice, Reparation and Non-Repetition launched a risk monitoring system this Tuesday. The System for Peace, which includes the Truth, Coexistence and Non-Repetition Commission, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace, and the Unit for the Search of Persons Presumed Disappeared in the context and by any reason of the armed conflict, launched the technological tool in San Jacinto Bolivar department. The monitoring system facilitates the collection of data on the risks and incidents affecting victims of the ongoing violence in the country, such as former FARC combatants and social leaders. On Tuesday, the United States revoked its designation of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia People's Army as a foreign terrorist organization. The U.S. government had indicated its intention to remove the former guerrilla group from its terror listing on November 23rd, the eve of the 5th anniversary of the peace deal between the Colombian government and the FARC, which led to their disarmament as the group dissolved after decades of fighting. The revolutionary group, which fought for 5 decades for a more equal Colombia, transformed into a political party in the wake of the peace agreement, with a guaranteed representation in Colombia's legislature. In Bolivia, a commission of prosecutors issued an accusation against Yanine Áñez for alleged crimes committed as senator and up until her self-proclamation as president of the country following the 2019 coup against Evo Morales.
There are sufficient elements to show that Mrs. Janine Áñez Chávez acted contrary to the law while being a senator, so her conduct adapts to criminal offenses foreseen in Article 153, referring to resolutions contrary to the Constitution and laws, and also Article 154 in relation to the breach of duties. The cases of Coup 1 and Coup 2 have to do with the actions attributed to Mrs. Janine Áñez before she was self-proclaimed president of the state. In that sense, they are prior to her being able to use the presidential sash.
Brazil's Federal Supreme Court this Tuesday rejected an appeal by the public ministry effectively blocking a trial into accusations of corruption against Flavio Bolsonaro, the son of the current president. The court upheld the privileged jurisdiction of Flavio Bolsonaro in the case surrounding accusations that he enriched himself by appropriating the salaries of employees of his office while he was a parliamentarian. The case had been waiting for almost a year and a half for the Supreme Court's decision. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Ethiopians living in South Africa marched to protest the United States and European Union interference in their home country as the conflict between the government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front continues. Our collaborator, Clever Banangayi, brings us the details.
The protesters who traveled from Johannesburg to Pretoria in buses and taxis arrived in Pretoria in high spirits and crisscrossed the streets of Pretoria, where they handed over a memorandum to the United States Embassy before traveling another 5 kilometers to the EU embassy to hand over another memorandum of demands. The march was part of efforts to show disdain at the Western interference in the affairs of Ethiopia, especially their backing of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Those acts of insurgency have escalated the human rights crisis in the country, including mass murders of women and children. After handing over a memorandum of demands to the EU embassy, they sang as they assembled to listen to a message of solidarity from the youth of South Africa, and this is what their leader had to say.
Ethiopia is the last country not colonized in this continent. What these people are doing, I know our leaders are scared of talking because they are blinded. We are not blinded. And I'm going to say it as it is. Our leaders are scared of telling the rest of the world where to go. I will tell them, you must go to hell.
The procession also served as disapproval against the ongoing and deliberate false reporting by some mainstream foreign media, including the CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera and others, that have been exposed for supporting what is clearly an ongoing attempt to invade Ethiopia by imposing a regime which previously ruled the country with an iron fist and with scant regards for human rights for a whole 27 nations. As they left the embassy, these protesters, they sang Ethiopian liberation songs and warned the EU and the USA to stay away from Ethiopia and stop supporting the TPLF. For TeleSUR English, I'm Clever Banganai reporting live from Pretoria, South Africa.
Thank you, Clever, for this report. Now we move on to other topics. At the closing ceremony, the 8th summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, hosted by Senegal, China promised African countries support to help overcome the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the global warming. Meanwhile, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Senegal welcomed further cooperation between the continent and Africa.
Vaccination is progressing in the world, but Africa suffers from an immunity gap with an immunization rate below the fifth of the world average. This is an extremely unfair and unreasonable situation, which we must immediately put an end to. The health and life of the African people are as precious and important as that of the other people in the world. China, a good friend of African countries, ready to make more efforts to bring more vaccines to Africa.
The People's Republic of China has agreed that the FOCAT agenda should be in line with the African Agenda 2063. We believe that the Dakar conference will mark a turning point in terms of form, a turning point in terms of innovative mechanisms that we will have, so that we will be able to better adjust our work and better monitor what we are doing together between China and Africa.
And a 15-year-old student opened fire inside a Michigan high school on Tuesday, killing 3 people and wounding 8 others, including a teacher. According to the sheriff's office, over 1 p.m. local time, hundreds of calls flooded to the 911 dispatch for reports of a shooting at Oxford High School. Authorities arrested the suspect at the school and recovered a handgun. They didn't immediately release the names of the suspect or of the victims. So far, authorities have only confirmed that the 3 who were killed were students, a 16-year-old male, a 14-year-old female, and a 17-year-old female.
We have updated information on the number of deceased. It is 3. We have 3 students, a 16-year-old male, a 14-year-old female, and a 17-year-old female. We also have 8 others that were shot in various stages at 3 different hospitals, McLaren Lapeer, McLaren Pontiac, and St. Joe's in Pontiac. We don't have a motive at this point in time. We are still investigating that.
Mike, what do you know about possible warning signs we're hearing from students and parents?
We're hearing all kinds of rumors about warning signs. I can tell you that we have a school liaison deputy that's assigned to the high school. I'm not aware of, and we are not aware of any warnings. If there were, I can tell you we work very closely with Tim Throne, the superintendent, and the principal at the school. If there were, I got to believe they would have told us. There's all kinds of stuff out on social media. Please don't believe everything you hear and see on social media. I've seen one screenshot of something about allegedly the shooter warning people not to come to school today, but that was somebody that got it from somebody. So please be careful with that information.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.